There's another feature, which is sentiment analysis. What is sentiment analysis, and how does it relate with instant recognition?
Sentiment analysis is basically like emotional intelligence for the AI, for machines. What do I mean by emotional intelligence is like we as humans, we interact with machines with our load of emotions. And the AI, while it just receive a bunch of words, it's very useful in enterprise context to understand the emotion, the sentiment. Okay, and when I mean sentiment, there are distinction with emotion. In technical terms, emotions, you have a vast range of emotion: joy, sadness, anger, etc. But in terms of sentiment, I would say there is we could say it's more binary or tertiary. I would say positive, neutral, or negative. And if you're able to even at least say that a conversation is either positive or negative or neutral, then you have when you aggregate the data, you have a tremendous insight to create more product and to develop more satisfaction in your customers.
I heard once that humans, we are emotional beings at reason, and not the other way around. We're not rational beings that feel emotions. We're emotional first,
Right.
then we reason.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with that. So yeah, I would say like it's interesting. I think, I don't know, I haven't thought about that too much, but I think it's kind of a continuum. But yeah, we tend to rationalize our emotions most of the time.
Yeah, I think that it has some ground in the fact that if you look at our brains, the amygdala, it's wired in a more direct way to our senses and to sudden action. If something happens in your world, the first part of your brain that's going to react is not your frontal lobe, which is the rational part of your brain. It's going to be the amygdala. So you're going to feel first. If a bear appears in front of you, before you understand it's a bear, you already run a few meters. And oftentimes our brain, our emotional brain, doesn't see the difference between a car that's going to run us over, a bear, or your wife that is yelling at you because of something. You feel the emotional response first.
Yep.
How does this sentiment analysis work in the context of AI? How does the AI manage to detect what someone's feeling? Because it's something that's often very hard for humans.
Right. So there are various techniques, but the most common, that's a technology that's been used and perfected in the last decade. Not only on text, actually, it's also on of faces and voice intonations. You are able to detect. So the way it's done is mostly, let's take for example the example of the text, but it's mostly works the same for facial expressions and voice intonation. Is that the content is tokenized first, is tokenized and is digitalized.
What do you mean by tokenized?
For example, you have a paragraph, or let's say you take a tweet or a review and you want to analyze its sentiment. You would first tokenize the text, so it's traditional machine learning processes. In order to, each word basically has its own assigned index into the vocabulary, and then those numbers are vectorized, meaning that instead of, let's say you have a word and you vectorize it into a number, but then you vectorize it into a vector. So the vector is usually high dimensional, 256, 1024. Those are the numbers of digits, numbers, actually numbers that you can put in that vector. If this vector would be a three-dimensional, it would just appear in 3D as a point, like from the origin pointing to the coordinate, except that it's much more dimension than 3. So you can imagine that when you vectorize, and then you can add those vectors into the full paragraph, or you can add it into one vector, and it will still keep its distinct aspect because it's such in a high dimension. And then
you build a full matrix, and then
kind of like a vector is like kind of a one-dimensional matrix, would say. So, and then this is just the traditional technique that is used in neural networks or like embeddings, and then you correlate it to a sentiment by training, a vast amount of data that you have labeled.
Okay.
This is the most basic technique. Then you have other techniques that are more like unsupervised, that more like using more recent LLMs, generative transformers, that are just able to completely generalize in an unsupervised way about all the words of your paragraph and correlate them automatically, statistically, to all the rest of the language. And then you will be able to identify emotions and sentiment. Yeah, it's the business superpower, basically, and it drives dollars.
Yeah.
So you have companies like Netflix, for example. They use sentiment analysis to analyze their user, and it's kind of help them to produce and generate hundreds of millions of dollars producing the next movie based on the sentiment of their users.